The sun cast long, golden shadows over the sleepy town of Pine Hollow, Oregon, as the final bell rang at Pine Hollow High on a crisp October afternoon in 2024. Its chime a signal that unleashed a torrent of students into the fading daylight. Among them, Amara Hayes slipped through the crowd, her worn sneakers whispering against the tiled floors, her dark braid swaying rhythmically with each measured step, a silent dance amid the chaos. It was her 6th week at the school, and already she had become a target for Caleb Thornton, the charismatic star of the wrestling team and self-proclaimed king of the social hierarchy. Amara, with her deep brown eyes that held a quiet intensity like smoldering embers, her smooth skin marked by the faint calluses of disciplined hands, and her unassuming presence, stood apart from Caleb's world of privilege and bravado. She was the new girl from St. Louis, raised by her grandfather, Master Darius Hayes, a legendary Wing Chun practitioner whose name once echoed through the underground martial arts circuits of Hong Kong, a shadow cast across continents from Kowloon to the Mississippi. Caleb's harassment began with subtle jabs, mocking her faded backpack with its patched strap, a careless shove in the crowded hallway that sent her books scattering like leaves in the wind, a whispered nickname, Silent Storm. Most students averted their eyes, some stifled nervous laughs, but none dared intervene, their silence a complicit cloak. They didn't notice how Amara's fingers twitched toward a defensive Wing Chun stance before she forced them to relax, or how her breathing steadied into a rhythmic flow when Caleb's crew loomed close, their shadows a threat she refused to acknowledge. Master Darius hadn't spent 16 years honing her in the precise, close-quarters art of Wing Chun, its principles of economy of motion, centerline defense, and simultaneous attack and defense, for her to unleash it on schoolyard bullies. Yet, as Caleb's provocations escalated, crude graffiti scrawled on her locker in dripping red ink, staged spills of her lunch tray in the cafeteria that drew gasps and giggles, notes slipped into her bag with venomous threats. No one realized they weren't breaking her spirit. They were awakening a storm she'd learned to suppress, a force tempered by discipline and guided by her grandfather's whispered wisdom. Hey, quick pause. Where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below with your location and let us know what you think so far. If this story's got you hooked, hit that follow button, because tomorrow's episode is going to blow your mind with a twist you won't see coming. The journey to Pine Hollow had been a reluctant odyssey, the old pickup truck sputtering along the winding roads, its engine groaning under the weight of their meager belongings, a relic of better days. Amara pressed her forehead against the cool window, her breath fogging the glass in fleeting clouds, her fingers tracing the frayed edges of a worn photo tucked in her jacket pocket. The image captured a moment frozen in time, a younger Amara, her face alight with determination, standing beside her grandfather, both in black training gear, practicing Wing Chun forms in their small St. Louis dojo. The walls behind them were lined with faded certificates and trophies, relics of Darius's storied past, titles won in secret tournaments, scars earned in back-alley fights, each a testament to his resilience. Their movements were a synchronized dance, a high block from Darius met with a swift punch from Amara, their connection a bond forged in sweat and steel. "We're almost there, sweetheart," her mother said, her voice heavy with exhaustion after the long drive from Missouri, her hands gripping the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline, her eyes shadowed with worry. "Your grandpa's been waiting." Amara nodded, her throat tight with unspoken emotions, the landscape outside a blur of pines and rolling hills, a new world she didn't choose. This move wasn't her decision. It had been forced upon her after an incident in St. Louis, a confrontation at a community center that left two boys with bruised egos, cracked ribs, and a narrative twisted against her by jealous peers. She'd defended herself, her Wing Chun a blur of instinct, but the aftermath, a suspension, parental outrage, and her family's hasty departure under the cover of night, had branded her a troublemaker. Her mother called it a fresh start, a chance to leave the chaos behind. Amara called it exile, a punishment for a moment of lost control, a scar on her soul. They pulled into the gravel driveway of a modest craftsman house nestled among towering pines, its graying wood and sagging porch a testament to years of neglect, a silent witness to time's passage. Master Darius stood waiting, his lean frame unbowed at 72, his face a map of scars from decades of sparring, each mark a story of survival. From street fights in Hong Kong's neon-lit alleys to underground tournaments in the States. His salt and pepper hair was tied back, his eyes sharp with a quiet pride that softened only when he looked at Amara, a grandfather's love hidden beneath a warrior's exterior. He wore a simple black tracksuit, the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle, a physique that defied his age, a living legend in repose. "You're late," he said, his voice a low rumble, tinged with warmth that cut through his stern demeanor, a father's scold wrapped in care. "Traffic, Grandpa," Amara replied, stepping into the crisp air, the scent of pine and damp earth filling her lungs, a stark contrast to the urban grit of St. Louis, a new breath in a new life. Darius nodded, then turned to grab a box from the truck bed, his movements deliberate and strong, a silent invitation to join him. "Your room's upstairs. We train at dawn, no excuses." No hugs, no tearful reunions, just the unspoken understanding that Amara was here to rebuild, not to hide, a pact sealed in silence. Her mother offered a tired smile, unloading the last of their belongings, while Amara followed Darius inside, the weight of her new life settling on her shoulders like a mantle, a burden and a promise. Pine Hollow High rose like a modern citadel, its glass walls and manicured lawns, a stark contrast to the weathered brick and chain-link fences of the urban schools Amara had known in St. Louis, a world of privilege she didn't understand. The building's sleek design, wide hallways lined with gleaming lockers, classrooms buzzing with smartboards and laptops, felt alien to her, a place where appearances reigned supreme, where the right jacket or the latest phone could elevate one's status, a currency she didn't possess. Students in branded hoodies and trendy sneakers moved in tight-knit groups, their chatter halting as Amara passed, her thrift store jacket and simple jeans marking her as an outsider, a target for their curiosity and judgment, their eyes like daggers. She adjusted her backpack, its patched strap a quiet rebellion against their standards, feeling the weight of their stares as she approached the main office, a fortress of bureaucracy. The receptionist, Mrs. Larson, a middle-aged woman with a pinched expression and a penchant for tapping her pen like a metronome, handed her a schedule with a curt nod. "Amara Hayes, transfer from St. Louis. First period starts in 10 minutes. Don't dawdle." Amara took the paper, AP English, Biology, History, and clutched the small leather-bound journal her grandfather had given her that morning, its cover worn smooth by time, its pages a sanctuary. "For when the world tests you," he'd said, his voice soft but firm, its pages filled with Wing Chun principles handwritten in his precise script. Economy of motion, centerline defense, simultaneous attack and defense. She ran her thumb over the cover, drawing strength from its familiarity, a tether to the life she'd left behind, a lifeline in the storm. In AP English, Ms. Carter, a wiry woman with a penchant for dramatic readings and a collection of colorful scarves that fluttered with her every gesture, pointed Amara to a seat near the back, a quiet corner of observation. The classroom was a blend of old and new, wooden desks scarred with years of carved initials, a smartboard displaying text from To Kill a Mockingbird, its pages alive with the struggles of a small southern town, a mirror to her own trials. The class was deep into a discussion, and Caleb Thornton, a tall senior with a wrestler's build and a politician's charm, was holding court, his voice a command. His broad shoulders filled out his Letterman jacket, the school's emblem embroidered in gold, and his blonde hair was perfectly styled, a testament to his status as a local hero, a golden boy untouchable. Atticus was naive, he said, his eyes flicking to Amara with a calculated smirk, a predator sizing up prey, a challenge in his gaze. He thought he could change people who didn't want to change. Some people just don't belong. Ms. Carter raised an eyebrow, her scarf, a vibrant purple today, fluttering as she turned to him, a teacher's curiosity piqued. Care to elaborate, Caleb? Before he could respond, Amara spoke, her voice quiet but clear, cutting through the room's hum like a blade through silk, a voice that demanded attention. Atticus wasn't naive. He was principled. He fought for what was right, even when it was hard. That's real strength. The room stilled, the air thick with surprise, a collective intake of breath, a moment of shock. Caleb's jaw tightened, his gaze turning cold and assessing, a storm brewing behind his eyes, while Ms. Carter nodded approvingly, her pen pausing mid-note. Well said, Miss Hayes. A nuanced take. Let's explore that further. Amara dropped her eyes to her journal, already regretting her words, the impulse to speak a betrayal of her vow to stay invisible, a spark that had ignited Caleb's interest in a way she hadn't intended, a fire she couldn't extinguish. By lunchtime, the cafeteria was a battlefield of social dynamics, a microcosm of Pine Hollow's hierarchy laid bare, a stage for power plays. Jocks claimed the prime tables near the center, their laughter loud and confident, a chorus of dominance, while artsy kids huddled by the vending machines, their conversations a quiet murmur of creativity, a counterpoint to the noise. Amara found a corner spot alone with her lunch, a container of collard greens and cornbread, packed by Darius, with a side of his famous hot sauce that carried the smoky essence of her St. Louis roots, a taste of home in a foreign land. The aroma was a comforting reminder of her past, a scent that drew attention amidst the processed sandwiches and prepackaged snacks, a beacon in the sea of conformity. Across the room, a girl with short, dyed blue hair and a camera slung around her neck watched her curiously. Layla Nguyen, Amara would later learn. Her sharp eyes and casual stance suggested a quiet observer, someone who noticed more than she let on, her camera a tool of silent witness, a chronicler of truth. Their eyes met briefly, a fleeting connection, a spark of recognition, before Lila turned back to her friends, a boy with a sketchbook and a girl with a stack of books, their table a haven of art and intellect, a refuge from the storm. Then Caleb sauntered in. His crew, Ethan, a wiry kid with a nervous grin that betrayed his loyalty, and Sophia, a cheerleader with a sharp tongue and a sharper smile, trailing behind like loyal lieutenants, a retinue of power. "Yo, Ethan, you smell that?" he called, his voice loud enough to turn heads, a performance for the audience, a king addressing his court. New girl's lunch smells like a backwoods barbecue. Laughter rippled through the room, a wave of derision that crashed against Amara's calm facade, the sound grating against her ears, a taunt she couldn't ignore. Ethan shrugged but stayed silent, his eyes avoiding hers, a coward's retreat, while Sophia giggled behind her hand, her nails painted a bright pink, a flash of mockery. Amara kept eating, her face impassive, but her grip on her spoon tightened, the metal cool against her skin, a silent anchor in the storm, a resolve hardening within. That evening, in the small dojo Darius had set up in the garage, Amara trained under his watchful eye, the space a sanctuary of focus and discipline, a temple of resilience. The garage was transformed, polished wooden floors gleaming under the dim light, a single Wing Chun dummy in the center, its wooden arms scarred from years of practice, a veteran of countless battles, walls adorned with faded photos of Darius's younger days, his victories captured in black and white, a gallery of glory. The air smelled of linseed oil and sweat, a scent that grounded her as she moved through her forms, her punches rapid, her blocks precise, her body a study in controlled power, a symphony of motion. "Your center line's exposed," Darius said, his voice breaking her focus as he tapped her elbow with a wooden staff, his touch light but firm, a teacher's correction. "What's distracting you?" Amara paused, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling with the effort, her breath visible in the cool air, a mist of exertion. "Just school, Grandpa," she replied, her tone guarded, a shield against the turmoil within, a wall she'd built to protect her heart. Darius's gaze was unrelenting, his scars catching the dim light, a map of battles fought and won, a history etched in flesh. "School is a battlefield too. Don't let it unbalance you." She nodded, resuming her kata, but her mind replayed Caleb's taunts, the laughter, the isolation, a chorus that echoed in her skull, a haunting refrain. She wasn't just fighting wooden dummies. She was fighting the urge to retaliate, the impulse to prove herself with fists rather than silence, a battle waged within as much as without, a war of the spirit. The next morning, Amara arrived at her locker to find a crude note taped to it, its edges curling from the morning's dampness, a harbinger of malice. "Go back to St. Louis, silent storm." The paper was scrawled with sloppy handwriting, the ink smudged from hurried application, a message of hostility etched in black, a scar on her day. Nearby, Sophia snickered with another girl, Mia, their whispers a low buzz that carried across the hall, a hum of conspiracy. Amara removed the note, folded it neatly with deliberate care, a ritual of control, a defiance in action, and slipped it into her bag without a word, her silence a weapon of its own, a shield against their venom. Lila, adjusting her camera nearby, her lens glinting in the fluorescent light, spoke up, her voice tentative but earnest, a lifeline thrown into the storm. "You don't have to take that, you know. You could report it." Amara met her eyes, her gaze steady, a calm sea over a turbulent depth, a resolve unyielding. "And let them think they've won. No way." Lila frowned, her brow furrowing with concern, a friend's worry etched in her face, but she didn't push further, a respect for boundaries. The bell rang, a sharp interruption, and Amara moved on, her calm exterior masking the storm brewing within, a tempest of frustration and resolve that threatened to break free, a volcano on the verge. In biology, Caleb's campaign escalated, a new chapter in his vendetta, a plot thickening with intent. As Amara worked on a lab assignment dissecting a frog, her gloved hand steady despite the task's grim nature, the scent of formaldehyde a sharp tang in the air, he accidentally knocked her tray of tools to the floor, the scalpel and forceps clattering against the tiles, a deliberate disruption, a calculated strike. The sound drew a few heads, but the teacher, Mr. Daniels, a balding man with a distracted air, was engrossed in another group's questions, oblivious to the scene, a bystander to injustice. "Oops, didn't see you there, Silent Storm," Caleb said, his grin sharp and mocking, his eyes glinting with triumph, a predator savoring his hunt, a king reveling in his power. Amara knelt to gather the tools, her movements deliberate, her face blank, a mask she'd perfected under Darius's tutelage, a facade of calm. But inside, her pulse raced, a drumbeat of anger she fought to suppress, her breath quickening despite her efforts, a tide rising within. She'd faced worse in St. Louis, street fights with older kids who'd targeted her for her grandfather's reputation, late-night ambushes that tested her survival, scars hidden beneath her skin. But this calculated cruelty was a different kind of challenge. It tested her patience, her discipline, her ability to rise above rather than strike back, a tightrope walk over a chasm of rage, a balance she struggled to maintain. That afternoon, Amara sought refuge in the school's garden, a quiet nook with overgrown roses, whose thorns caught the light, their crimson petals a silent witness, and a stone bench worn smooth by time and weather, its surface cool against her palms, a touchstone of peace. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the tension coiled within her, a sanctuary amid the storm. She was reviewing her history notes, the pages filled with details about the Civil War, battles at Gettysburg, strategies of Sherman, the resilience of those who endured, when Caleb and his crew, Ethan, Sophia, and a new boy, Tyler, a lanky freshman eager to impress with his awkward swagger, a pawn in the game, approached, their shadows lengthening in the fading light. "Hiding out, Silent Storm?" Caleb taunted, kicking dirt onto her notebook, the soil staining the white paper, a petty act of dominance, a mark of his reign. Amara stood, her movements fluid, her eyes locking onto his with an intensity that made him pause, a predator meeting an equal, a challenge unspoken. "I'm studying. Leave me alone," she said, her voice steady, a command wrapped in calm, a steel core beneath her surface. Caleb stepped closer, towering over her, his breath hot and laced with mint gum, his presence a wall of aggression, a fortress of arrogance. "You think you're too good for us, don't you? All mysterious with your kung fu crap." Amara didn't flinch, her voice even, a resolve unyielding. "I'm not here to impress you." Something in her gaze, unyielding, almost ancient, a wisdom beyond her years, made Caleb hesitate, his bravado faltering for a split second, a crack in his armor, a glimpse of doubt. But Sophia laughed, a high-pitched sound that broke the tension, her pink nails flashing as she gestured, a queen mocking her subject. "Freak," she muttered as they walked away, leaving Amara to pick up her dirt-stained notes, her fingers brushing away the soil with quiet resolve, a silent promise to endure, a vow etched in her heart. The next incident came during a crowded hallway transition, the space a chaotic swirl of students rushing to class, their voices a cacophony of chatter and laughter, a symphony of youth. Caleb's voice cut through the noise, sharp and deliberate, a blade aimed at her pride, a strike from the shadows. "Nice backpack, Silent Storm. Salvation Army Special?" His hand darted out, tugging at her strap with a jerk that nearly pulled it from her shoulder, the fabric straining under his grip, a violation of her space. In a flash, Amara's hand caught his wrist, her fingers pressing into a pressure point with Wing Chun precision, a technique Darius had drilled into her 100 times, her touch a precise application of force, a dancer's grace in combat. Caleb yelped, his arm going limp as he pulled back, the sudden pain a shock to his system, his face contorting in surprise, a king dethroned for a moment. The hallway froze. Phones already out to capture the moment, their lenses glinting in the fluorescent light, a digital witness to the clash, a viral moment in the making. Amara released him, picked up her dropped bag with a calm she didn't feel, and walked away, her steps measured, her head high, a queen regaining her throne. Behind her, Caleb rubbed his wrist, his face flushed with rage and humiliation, his voice a hiss of venom. "You'll regret that," he said, his words wavering with a mix of anger and uncertainty, a threat that hung in the air like smoke, a promise of retribution. By the end of the day, the incident had morphed into legend, a story that grew with each retelling, a wildfire of gossip that spread through the school, a tale that fueled the rumor mill. Some said Amara had twisted Caleb's arm until he begged for mercy, his pride shattered on the linoleum floor, his cries echoing in the halls, a dramatic fall from grace. Others claimed she'd used some mystical move to paralyze him, a whisper of martial arts magic that turned her into a figure of awe and fear, a ninja in their midst. The truth, that she'd used minimal force to stop him, a controlled response honed by years of training, was less sensational but more unsettling, a testament to her restraint rather than her aggression, a quiet power that unnerved her peers, a mystery they couldn't unravel. That evening, Amara found a note slipped into her locker, its edges crumpled, a harbinger of doom. "You're not untouchable, Storm." The paper was scrawled in haste, the words a threat veiled as a promise, the ink smudged with intent, a scar on her day. She burned it in the backyard fire pit, the flames licking at the edges as Darius watched silently from the porch, his silhouette framed by the fading light, his expression a mix of pride and concern, a silent guardian in the dusk, a mentor in the shadows. The next morning, Lila caught Amara at her locker, her camera dangling from her neck, her expression a blend of curiosity and worry, her blue hair catching the morning light, a beacon of friendship. "I saw what happened yesterday. That was intense," she said, her voice soft but earnest, a lifeline thrown into the storm, a hand reaching out. Amara shrugged, arranging her books with deliberate care, the routine a small anchor in the chaos, a ritual of control. "It was nothing," she replied, her tone neutral, a shield against the turmoil within, a wall she'd built to protect her heart. Lila leaned closer, her brow furrowing with concern, her breath warm in the cool hall, a friend's worry etched in her face. "It wasn't nothing. Caleb's obsessed with you now. He's been digging into your past, asking about St. Louis." Amara's hand paused, her fingers hovering over a textbook, the memory of that city stirring like a restless tide, a floodgate of pain and regret, a wound reopened. "Let him dig. There's nothing he'll understand," she said, her voice steady but laced with a quiet pain, a scar she carried within. But Lila's words lingered, stirring memories of St. Louis, a fight she hadn't meant to escalate, a boy who'd pushed too far with taunts about her grandfather's past, a community center that had banned her after the incident, the aftermath a blur of accusations, and her family's decision to leave, a flight from a life she'd loved, an exile she couldn't escape. In PE, Caleb's absence was a palpable void, a silence that spoke louder than his presence, a vacuum filled with whispers and speculation, a mystery unsolved. The gym buzzed with the sounds of bouncing balls and shouted instructions, a symphony of youth, but the absence of his commanding voice was noticeable, a hole in the fabric of the team's dynamics, a throne unoccupied. Whispers circulated among the students, carried on the wind of gossip, rumors that he was at a wrestling camp in Portland, training with a coach known for dirty tactics, a man who'd turned boys into brutes with a philosophy of win at all costs, a mentor of shadows. "He's got a point to prove," Ethan told his friends during a water break, his smirk directed at Amara as she stretched on the sidelines, her movements fluid but restrained, her breaths measured and controlled, a dancer in repose. She ignored them, focusing on her sprints, deliberately pacing herself to blend into the background, a shadow among the active bodies, a ghost in the machine. But Lila, now a cautious ally, wasn't convinced, her intuition a quiet alarm, a warning unheeded. "He's planning something," she warned at lunch, her voice low as they sat together with her sketchbook open between them, its pages filled with pencil sketches of the garden, a sanctuary of peace. "I overheard Sophia talking about a big reveal at the winter talent show." Amara nodded, her mind already turning, assessing the threat with the same precision she applied to her forms. A strategist, preparing for battle, a general in the making. That night, Darius pushed Amara harder in the dojo. The garage transformed into a battleground of focus and discipline, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and sweat, a temple of resilience. He guided her through multi-opponent scenarios, his voice a steady cadence over the rhythm of her movements, a drumbeat of wisdom. "Your enemies will swarm," he said, circling her as she sparred with padded dummies, their wooden limbs a proxy for the chaos she might face, their surfaces scarred from years of use, a veteran's tale. "You must control the space, not the fight." Amara blocked a phantom strike, her movements precise but strained, her muscles aching from the effort, her breath a visible mist in the cool air, a sign of her struggle. "What if they don't give me a choice?" she asked, her voice tight with the weight of the question, a plea for guidance, a cry for clarity. Darius's eyes softened, his scars catching the dim light as he lowered his staff, his presence a pillar of strength, a rock in the storm. "Wing Chun is about redirection, not destruction. You always have a choice. Use it wisely." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. But the weight of Caleb's threats pressed on her, a shadow she couldn't shake, a burden she carried into the night, a weight on her soul. The winter talent show was a month away, and tension hung over Pine Hollow High like a storm cloud, dark and heavy with unspoken anticipation, a pressure building in the air, a volcano on the verge. Amara kept to her routine, classes, training, the quiet moments with her journal. But the whispers grew louder, fueled by a blurry video circulating online, its pixels a distorted mirror of her reality, a lie given form. It showed her practicing Wing Chun forms in the school's empty gym after hours, her movements a blur of speed and precision, her kicks and punches a symphony of controlled power, her body a vessel of grace under pressure, a dancer in the dark. The caption read, "Pine Hollow's secret fighter," and the comments ranged from awe, "She's like a ninja," to suspicion, "Is she dangerous?" A debate that raged in the digital ether. Lila swore she hadn't recorded it, her hands raised in defense when Amara confronted her in the garden, the roses a silent witness, their thorns a metaphor for protection. "I didn't, I swear," Lila said, her voice trembling with sincerity, a friend's plea. Someone must have snuck in. But the damage was done. The video had spread, its reach beyond their control, a viral storm that amplified Caleb's vendetta, a weapon in his hands. Caleb returned 2 weeks before the show, his presence electric with newfound confidence. A predator returned to his territory, his shadow stretching across the halls, a darkness reborn. He'd gained muscle, his movements sharper, his eyes fixed on Amara with a predatory focus that sent a shiver down her spine. A hunter's gaze honed by weeks of training, a wolf on the prowl. In history class, a documentary on martial arts played, the screen flickering with images of ancient warriors, samurai with katanas, Shaolin monks with staffs, Wing Chun masters with grace, and students glanced at Amara as the narrator spoke of Wing Chun's origins in Chinese resistance, its roots in survival and adaptability, a legacy of the oppressed, a history she carried. Caleb leaned over, his breath warm against her ear, his voice a low whisper that carried a threat, a serpent's hiss. "Found out about your grandpa, Silent Storm. Darius Hayes, the St. Louis Shadow. Bet you think you're hot stuff because of him." Amara didn't respond, her pen moving steadily over her notes, the scratch of ink a counterpoint to his words, a defiance in silence. But her refusal only fueled his anger, a fire stoked by her calm, a challenge he couldn't ignore, a battle he couldn't win. Meanwhile, Amara's life outside school began to take shape in unexpected ways. A lifeline in the storm, a thread of hope woven into her exile, a light in the darkness. Lila, who'd become a tentative friend, invited her to a photography club meeting after school. A small room filled with cameras, tripods, and prints pinned to the walls like a gallery of captured moments, a sanctuary of creativity, a haven of art. Lila introduced Amara to the other members. Omar, a shy sophomore with a knack for black and white photography, his fingers smudged with charcoal, his eyes bright with quiet passion, an artist in the shadows. And Elise, a junior who specialized in nature shots, her energy a vibrant contrast to Omar's reserved nature, her voice a cascade of enthusiasm, a force of nature. "We're working on a project about resilience," Lila explained, showing Amara a series of photos. A cracked sidewalk with a flower pushing through, its petals a defiant bloom, a symbol of hope. A lone tree on a windswept cliff, its branches bent but unbroken, a testament to endurance. A rusted bicycle leaning against a wall, its frame a story of survival, a relic of time. "I thought you might have some ideas," Lila said, her camera clicking softly as she adjusted a print, a chronicler at work. Amara hesitated, her mind flashing to her own struggles. The move, the bullying, the fight in St. Louis, a scar on her soul. Then nodded, a decision made. "I'll think about it." For the first time since arriving in Pine Hollow, she felt a flicker of belonging, a thread of connection in the fabric of her new life, a spark that warmed the cold edges of her isolation, a bridge to the future. But Caleb's campaign didn't relent, his vendetta a persistent shadow that grew with each passing day, a darkness that refused to fade. Over the next few weeks, his taunts became more personal, a dagger aimed at her past, a weapon forged from half-truths, a blade of malice. He'd learned about the incident in St. Louis, not the full story, but enough to twist it into a narrative of his choosing, a tale of his making. "Heard you got kicked out for beating up some kids," he sneered in the hallway one day, his voice loud enough to draw a crowd, his crew flanking him like a guard, their presence a wall of support, a fortress of loyalty. "What kind of thug are you, Silent Storm?" Amara kept walking, her face impassive, her steps measured, her head high, a queen in exile, but the whispers followed her, a chorus of judgment that clung to her like damp fog, a weight she couldn't shake. That night, she told Darius about the rumors, sitting cross-legged on the dojo floor, her journal open in her lap, its pages a map of her journey, a chronicle of her trials. "They don't know the truth," she said, her voice tight with emotion, her hands trembling slightly, a crack in her armor. "Those boys attacked me first. I was defending myself. They wouldn't stop, and I lost control for a moment, a lapse I regret." Darius nodded, his expression grave, his hands resting on his knees, his scars a silent testament to his own battles, a history of survival. "The world rarely cares for the truth when a lie is more convenient," he said, his voice a rumble of wisdom, a lesson learned. "Keep your center, Amara. Let them talk. Their words have no power unless you give it to them." She nodded, her resolve hardening, a steel forged in fire, a vow to rise above. At school, Amara's quiet resilience began to draw allies, a network of support forming around her, like roots breaking through concrete, a foundation built on mutual respect, a community in the making. Omar, from the photography club, approached her one day at lunch, his tray balanced precariously as he slid into the seat across from her, his sketchbook tucked under his arm, a shield of creativity. "I heard what Caleb's been saying," he said, his voice soft, almost lost in the cafeteria noise, a whisper against the clamor, a voice of reason. "I don't believe it. You don't seem like that kind of person." Amara managed a small smile, a rare crack in her armor, a glimpse of the girl beneath the storm, a light in the darkness. "Thanks, Omar." Elise joined them, her fiery energy a contrast to Omar's shyness, her tray clattering as she set it down, her movements a burst of life, a spark of defiance. "Caleb's a jerk," she declared, her voice carrying a hint of rebellion, her eyes flashing with conviction. A warrior's spirit. "He's just mad because you're not scared of him." Their support was a small comfort, a shield against the storm, a bulwark against the tide. But Amara knew Caleb wouldn't stop. Not until he felt he'd won, his pride a fragile thing demanding sacrifice, a throne built on the backs of others, a kingdom of shadows. As the talent show approached, the school buzzed with anticipation, a current of excitement running through the halls, a pulse of energy that vibrated in the air, a heartbeat of possibility. Amara decided to participate, not as a fighter, but as a photographer, a choice that aligned with her growing bond with Lila and the club, a path of creation rather than destruction. She and Lila had been working on a series of photos for the exhibit, images that captured resilience in unexpected places. A rusted gate held together by a single hinge, its metal groaning but standing firm, a symbol of endurance, a sparrow nesting in a broken street lamp, its tiny form a defiance of decay, a whisper of hope. A weathered signpost leaning against a tree, its letters faded but legible, a relic of time. Amara's favorite was a shot of her grandfather's hands, calloused and steady, holding a Wing Chun dummy mid-strike, the wood scarred from years of practice, the photo a portrait of strength and stillness, a visual echo of her own journey, a mirror to her soul. "It's perfect," Lila said, when Amara showed her the print, her camera clicking as she adjusted the lighting, her blue hair a bright spot in the dim room, a beacon of friendship. "It's like strength in stillness." Amara nodded, a rare smile touching her lips, the first genuine one since leaving Saint Louis, a warmth that spread through her chest, a light in the darkness. For the first time, she felt like she was building something, not just surviving, a foundation laid brick by brick, a legacy in the making, a dream taking shape. But Caleb's return cast a shadow over her progress, a cloud darkening the horizon, a threat that loomed larger with each passing day, a storm brewing. The day before the talent show, he cornered her in the hallway, his presence a wall of aggression, his crew lingering nearby, their eyes glinting with anticipation, a pack ready to strike. "I know all about St. Louis," he said, his voice low and menacing, his breath hot with the scent of mint gum, his eyes glinting with malice, a predator's gaze. "Tomorrow, everyone else will too. You're done, Silent Storm." Amara held his gaze, her heart pounding but her voice steady, a steel core beneath her calm, a fortress of resolve, a queen facing her challenger. "Do what you want, Caleb. I'm not afraid of you." He smirked, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a crack in his armor, a doubt creeping in as he walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hall, a drumbeat of impending conflict, a warning unheeded. That night, Amara couldn't sleep, the weight of the upcoming confrontation pressing on her chest, a boulder she couldn't shift, a burden she carried alone. She sat on the floor of her room, her grandfather's journal open in her lap, the pages yellowed with age and wisdom, the ink a testament to years of lessons, a chronicle of strength. She read the principles he'd written, each word a lifeline. The strongest strike is the one you never throw. Control the center line, and you control the fight. Strength is in the mind, not the muscle. Her mind drifted to St. Louis, the boys who'd cornered her at the community center, their taunts about her grandfather's past, a barrage of venom, the way they'd lunged when she'd tried to walk away, their fists a blur of aggression, a storm of hate. She defended herself, her Wing Chun a blur of blocks and strikes, a reflex honed by years of training, a dance of survival. But the aftermath had been a tempest of its own. Accusations from parents, suspensions from the school board, and her family's decision to leave. A flight from a life she'd loved, an exile she couldn't escape. Now, Caleb was dredging it all up again, a mirror to her past she couldn't avoid, a reflection she had to face, a challenge she couldn't ignore. She closed the journal, her resolve hardening like tempered steel, a blade forged in the fire of her trials, a weapon of peace. Whatever Caleb had planned, she'd face it, not with fists, but with the quiet strength her grandfather had taught her, a power rooted in patience and precision, a dance of survival, a legacy of stillness. The morning of the winter talent show dawned cold and clear, the air sharp with the promise of winter, the sky a pale gray over Pine Hollow, a canvas of impending change, a stage set for drama. Amara dressed in a simple black sweater and jeans, her grandfather's pendant, a carved lotus, its petals a symbol of resilience, a flower rising from mud, around her neck, its cool metal a reminder of her roots, a talisman against the storm, a shield of heritage. She met Lila at the school's auditorium, where the photography club was setting up their exhibit, the space alive with activity, students rehearsing with nervous energy, teachers organizing with clipped instructions, parents filing in with cameras and smiles, a tapestry of anticipation, a crowd awaiting spectacle. Amara helped Lila arrange their photos, her hands steady despite the knot in her stomach. The prints, a gallery of resilience she'd come to understand, a visual narrative of her journey, a story told in light and shadow. "You okay?" Lila asked, noticing the tension in Amara's shoulders, her blue hair a bright spot in the dim light, her camera a constant companion, a witness to truth. Amara nodded. "Just ready to get this over with." Lila squeezed her arm, a gesture of solidarity, a bond forged in shared purpose, a hand of friendship. "We've got your back." As the show began, Amara watched from the sidelines, her nerves fraying with each act. A choir's harmonious rendition of a holiday song, its notes a fragile beauty, a melody of hope, a juggler's clumsy but earnest performance, his balls arcing through the air, a dance of chants, a poetry reading that brought tears to some eyes, its words a lament for lost innocence, a cry in the night. The photography exhibit was a hit. Students and parents murmured in appreciation as they passed the display, some lingering at Amara's photo of Darius's hands, its stillness a quiet power, a meditation in monochrome, a portrait of strength. But her focus was on Caleb, who was scheduled to perform last, a shadow on the horizon, a storm approaching. Lila had overheard Sophia talking about a big reveal, and Amara braced herself, her body tense but her mind sharp, a warrior preparing for battle, a general in the making. She glanced at her grandfather in the audience, his presence a quiet anchor, his nod a silent encouragement, a pillar of strength amidst the crowd, a lighthouse in the fog. Whatever happened, she wouldn't let Caleb break her, a vow etched in the marrow of her bones, a promise to herself. The auditorium lights dimmed as the final act approached, the air thick with anticipation, a current of unease running through the crowd, a tide waiting to turn, a moment of destiny. The MC, Tara, a cheerful junior with a bright smile and a voice that carried hope, announced the closing performance, a herald of drama. And now, please welcome Caleb Thornton with a special presentation. The applause was thunderous, Caleb's popularity a force of its own, a wave that crashed against the walls, a roar of approval. But Amara felt a chill, a premonition of conflict, a shiver down her spine. He took the stage, a smug grin on his face, a phone in his hand, its screen already lit up for a live stream, a digital stage for his vendetta, a platform for his revenge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice amplified by the microphone, a performer in his element, a king addressing his court. "Tonight, I'm here to introduce you to Pine Hollow's newest celebrity." His eyes locked onto Amara's, a predatory glint in them, a hunter sighting his prey, a wolf on the prowl. "Let's meet the silent storm." A screen lowered behind him, and the crowd murmured as a video flickered to life, its grainy footage a distortion of truth, a lie given form, a fabrication of malice. The video showed a fight in a St. Louis alley, with Amara's face digitally imposed onto a figure throwing punches, her movements exaggerated and brutal, a caricature of violence that bore no resemblance to her disciplined art, a monster created by technology. Gasps rippled through the audience, followed by whispers that grew into a hum of judgment, a chorus of condemnation, a jury swayed by deceit. "She's a thug," Caleb said, his voice dripping with mock concern, his hand gesturing to the screen, a director framing his narrative, a playwright of lies. "She got kicked out of her last school for this. Is this who we want at Pine Hollow?" The crowd's reaction was a mix of shock and curiosity, some nodding, others exchanging uneasy glances, a sea of doubt, a tide of uncertainty. Amara stood frozen, her fists clenched at her sides, but her face remained impassive, a mask of calm she'd perfected under Darius's tutelage, a shield against the storm, a fortress of resolve. She felt the weight of every stare, the judgment in the air like a physical thing, pressing against her chest, a burden she refused to shoulder, a weight she would not carry. Beside her, Lila whispered, "That's fake. He can't do this." Her voice a lifeline in the chaos, her hand brushing Amara's arm, a touch of support, a beacon of truth. But Caleb wasn't done, his performance a crescendo of malice, a finale of revenge. He stepped closer to the edge of the stage, his presence commanding, and tossed a padded bow staff onto the floor in front of Amara, the clatter echoing in the silent auditorium, a challenge thrown like a gauntlet, a call to arms. "Show us what you've got, Silent Storm," he taunted, pulling a similar staff from his belt, its padding worn from practice, a weapon in his hands, a tool of aggression. "Or are you just a fraud?" The crowd held its breath, the tension crackling like static, a storm about to break, a moment suspended in time, a cliffhanger of fate. Principal Evans stood from her seat in the front row, her voice sharp and authoritative, a beacon of order, a voice of reason. "Mr. Thornton, stop this immediately." But Caleb ignored her, his eyes fixed on Amara, a challenge thrown like a spear, a test of her resolve, a battle line drawn. Amara bent down slowly, picking up the padded staff with deliberate care, her movements a study in control, her fingers wrapping around the wood with a grip born of years of training, a dancer stepping into the rota, a warrior entering the fray. "This isn't a game, Caleb," she said, her voice low but carrying through the auditorium, a quiet thunder that silenced the murmurs, a declaration of her intent, a vow of strength. He laughed, a harsh sound that grated against the stillness, and lunged, swinging the staff with force, his movements aggressive but sloppy from his recent training, a brute force lacking finesse, a storm of rage. Amara sidestepped effortlessly, her Wing Chun instincts kicking in, her body flowing like water around his attack, a river bending around a rock, a dance of evasion. The crowd gasped as she deflected his swings with minimal effort, her staff a blur of precise blocks, never striking back, her feet shifting in a choreography of restraint, a ballet of peace. Caleb's frustration grew, his swings wilder, his face red with exertion, sweat beading on his forehead, his breath a ragged pant, a beast losing control. "Fight me," he shouted, his voice a desperate plea, a cry for validation, a king begging for his crown. But Amara remained calm, her movements a testament to her discipline, her staff held defensively but unused, a shield rather than a sword, a symbol of restraint. Desperate, he signaled to Ethan and Tyler, who rushed the stage, their own padded staffs in hand, their faces set with determination, a pack answering their leader's call, a tide of aggression. The crowd erupted in murmurs as the situation escalated, a brawl threatening to unfold, a clash of wills in the spotlight, a drama unfolding. Amara's training took over. She redirected Ethan's charge with a swift pivot, her staff guiding his momentum to send him stumbling into Tyler, their staffs clattering to the ground in a chaotic symphony, a domino effect of miscalculation, a dance of fate. Caleb swung again, a wild arc aimed at her head, but Amara stepped into his space, her presence alone forcing him back, her staff held steady, a barrier he couldn't breach, a wall of resolve. "Enough," she said, her voice a quiet command that cut through the chaos, a declaration that silenced the room, a moment of triumph without violence, a victory of the spirit. The auditorium fell silent, the live stream capturing every second, the red dot on Caleb's phone a witness to his defeat, a digital record of his fall, a viral moment etched in time. Sirens wailed outside. Someone had called the police, the sound a distant wail growing closer, a harbinger of justice, a call to order. As officers entered, their uniforms a stark contrast to the festive atmosphere, their boots echoing on the stage, a rhythm of authority. Caleb's bravado crumbled, his staff dropping to the floor with a hollow thud, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his actions. A king dethroned, a shadow cast aside. Lila stepped forward, holding up her phone, her voice trembling but firm, a beacon of truth in the darkness, a light piercing the lie. "I've got the real footage," she said, addressing the crowd, her words clear and unwavering, a clarion call, a voice of justice. "Caleb planned this to humiliate her. That video's a deepfake. I can prove it." She played a recording of Sophia and Ethan discussing Caleb's plan earlier that week, their voices captured in a quiet corner of the cafeteria, a conspiracy laid bare. "We'll make her look like a monster. She'll have to leave." The crowd erupted in whispers, the tide of opinion shifting, a wave of realization washing over them, a sea of redemption as the police approached, their presence a final nail in Caleb's scheme, a gavel of fate. Amara stood alone under the stage lights, the padded staff still in her hand, her grandfather's pendant a steadying weight against her chest, a talisman of her heritage, a shield of strength. Principal Evans took the stage, her expression a mix of anger and resolve, her voice cutting through the murmurs, a voice of authority, a judge in the fray. "This event is over," she announced, her tone leaving no room for argument, a gavel striking justice, a decree of order. "We'll be investigating this incident thoroughly. Miss Hayes, please stay after. We need to speak." The audience began to file out, their murmurs a mix of shock and admiration, a sea of faces blurring into the background, a chorus of redemption, a tide of change. Amara's new friends, Lila, Omar, and Elise, gathered around her, their support a quiet comfort, a shield against the storm, their presence a balm, a circle of light. "You were amazing," Elise said, her eyes wide with awe, her voice a whisper of admiration, her energy a spark, a flame of hope. "You didn't even hit him." Amara managed a small smile, but her gaze sought her grandfather in the crowd. Darius met her eyes, his nod a silent affirmation of her strength, his pride a beacon in the chaos, a lighthouse guiding her home, a mentor's blessing. The days that followed were a whirlwind of consequences and change, a tempest of justice and renewal, a storm of transformation. Caleb, Ethan, and Tyler faced expulsion. Their actions deemed a clear violation of school policy, a breach of trust that reverberated through the community, a shockwave that reshaped the social order, a ripple of accountability. The deepfake video was traced back to a burner account Caleb had created, its digital fingerprints leading to his doorstep, a trail of evidence that sealed his fate, a web of his own making, a trap he couldn't escape. Lila's evidence, along with testimony from other students who'd witnessed Caleb's bullying, their voices a chorus of truth, a symphony of justice, convinced the school board, their decision swift and unanimous, a statement of zero tolerance, a line drawn in the sand, a boundary of honor. But the incident had a broader impact, a ripple effect that touched every corner of Pine Hollow High, a wave that lifted the town from its complacency, a tide of change. Principal Evans launched an anti-bullying campaign inspired by Amara's restraint, naming it Strength in Stillness, a title that echoed her grandfather's teachings, a philosophy etched in her soul, a mantra of peace. She invited Amara to speak at the kickoff assembly, a chance to share her story and set the tone for a new culture of respect, a platform to inspire, a stage for redemption. Amara stood at the podium a week later, the auditorium packed with students and faculty, the air thick with anticipation, a current of hope, her grandfather watching from the back, his presence a quiet strength, a pillar of support, a rock in the storm. She took a deep breath, her voice steady as she began, the microphone amplifying her words to every corner, a voice that carried hope, a clarion call. "I came to Pine Hollow hoping for a fresh start," she said, her tone measured, her eyes scanning the crowd, a sea of faces eager for redemption, a tapestry of possibility. "But I learned that you can't escape challenges. You can only choose how to face them. My grandfather taught me Wing Chun, but more than that, he taught me that true strength isn't in the fight you win. It's in the fight you end without violence." She paused, her gaze lingering on Lila, Omar, and Elise, their smiles a silent encouragement, a bond forged in adversity, a circle of light. "I'm not a thug or a storm or any of the names I've been called. I'm Amara Hayes, and I'm here to build, not to break." The applause was deafening, students rising to their feet, some with tears in their eyes, a wave of support that washed over her like a tide, a baptism of acceptance, a chorus of redemption, a victory of the spirit. Lila hugged her tightly after the assembly, whispering, "You're incredible," her voice thick with emotion, her camera a silent witness, a chronicler of triumph. Omar and Elise joined them, their smiles bright, their friendship a new foundation, a bridge to the future, a bond of steel. "We're starting a self-defense club," Elise announced, her energy infectious, her hands gesturing with excitement, a spark of possibility, a flame of action. "And we want you to lead it." Amara hesitated, her mind flashing to the dojo, the forms, the discipline, the lessons etched in her muscle memory, a heritage of strength, then nodded. "I'd like that," she said, her voice soft but certain, a commitment to something greater, a legacy in the making, a promise to the future. Over the next few months, Pine Hollow High transformed under the influence of Amara's quiet leadership, a metamorphosis driven by her example, a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. The Self-Defense Club became a cornerstone of the school's new culture, meeting twice a week in the gym, the space filled with laughter, determination, and the rhythmic sounds of practice, kicks against padded targets, the shuffle of feet on mats, the hum of encouragement, a symphony of growth. Amara taught girls and a few boys, not just Wing Chun techniques, but the philosophy of resilience, control, and community, her lessons drawn from Darius's journal, her words a guide to inner strength, a map to peace. Lila documented the club's progress through her photography, creating a series called Echoes of Resilience that won a regional award, its prints displayed in the school's library, a testament to their growth, a gallery of hope, a visual narrative of triumph. Omar contributed sketches, his charcoal drawings capturing the strength in the students' faces, a portrait of transformation, a chronicle of change, while Elise organized fundraisers, her energy a driving force, her voice a call to action, a beacon of unity. Outside school, Amara's life deepened in unexpected ways, a tapestry woven with new threads, a fabric of connection and purpose, a quilt of resilience. She and her grandfather began hosting community workshops at their garage dojo, offering free Wing Chun classes to local kids, their eager faces a bright spot in her days, their laughter a melody that filled the space, a chorus of hope. The sessions were a hit, drawing children from all over Pine Hollow, their parents joining in, a community forged in sweat and discipline, a family of choice. Amara found herself growing into a teacher, her quiet confidence inspiring others to find their own strength, a ripple effect of her journey, a wave of change. One evening, as she helped a shy girl named Mia perfect a block, her small hands trembling with effort, her eyes wide with determination, a spark of courage, Amara felt a sense of purpose she'd never known, a fulfillment that transcended her own struggles, a light in the darkness. "You're a natural teacher," Darius told her later, his voice gruff with pride as they cleaned the dojo, the wooden floor gleaming under the lights, the air cool with the scent of polish, a temple of peace. Amara smiled, her heart full, her eyes meeting his, a bond unbroken. "I learned from the best." The school year drew to a close, and Pine Hollow High prepared for its annual spring festival, a celebration of growth and renewal, a marker of the town's evolution, a festival of light and life, a carnival of hope. Amara and her friends decided to participate, not with a performance, but with a community project, a vision born of their shared ideals, a dream of unity. They'd secured funding from the settlement Caleb's family had paid after the talent show incident, a sum negotiated by the school board to atone for his actions, a restitution for the harm done, a price of redemption. With it, they built a small community center near the school, naming it Stillness Space, a haven offering free martial arts classes, art workshops, and counseling for kids dealing with bullying, a sanctuary of peace in a turbulent world, a lighthouse in the storm. The center was a labor of love. Amara designed the layout with Darius's input, her sketches a blend of function and beauty, a vision of harmony. Lila captured its construction in photos, her camera a chronicler of progress, a witness to growth. Omar sketched its blueprint, his charcoal a vision of possibility, a map of hope. And Elise rallied volunteers, her energy a driving force, her voice a call to unity, a drumbeat of action. At the festival, Amara cut the ribbon to officially open the center, the crowd cheering as she spoke, her voice strong and clear, a beacon of hope, a clarion call. "This is a place for all of us," she said, her eyes meeting those of the kids who joined her club, their faces a mosaic of diversity, a tapestry of life. A place to find strength, to heal, and to grow, together. Graduation day arrived under a canopy of cherry blossoms, the air sweet with their scent, the sky a soft blue over Pine Hollow, a canvas of promise, a stage of triumph. Amara stood on the stage in her cap and gown, her grandfather's pendant gleaming against her chest, a symbol of her journey, a talisman of her heritage, a shield of strength. She'd been chosen to give a speech, her story a testament to the school's transformation, a narrative of resilience that had reshaped the community, a tale of quiet power, a legend in the making. "We all face storms," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd, her hand steady at her sides, her presence a pillar of strength, a rock in the tide. But it's not the storm that defines us, it's how we stand in it. Pine Hollow taught me that strength isn't just in fighting back, it's in choosing to build something better. She paused, her eyes finding Darius in the audience, his smile a beacon of pride, his nod a silent blessing, a father's love in a grandfather's gaze, a mentor's approval. Let's keep building, together. The applause was thunderous, students and families rising in a standing ovation, their cheers a wave that washed over her, a baptism of acceptance, a chorus of redemption, a victory of the spirit. Amara stepped down, her friends enveloping her in hugs, their laughter a melody of joy. Lila's bright giggle, Omar's shy chuckle, Elise's exuberant shout, a symphony of connection, a harmony of hope. As she walked off the stage, Darius approached, his eyes misty, a rare vulnerability in his weathered face, his scars a map of battles fought and won, a history of survival. "You've made me proud, Amara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, his hands trembling slightly as he embraced her. A grandfather's love, a warrior's heart. "You've made us all proud." Amara hugged him tightly, her tears dampening his shoulder, her heart swelling with gratitude. A floodgate of relief and joy, a river of emotion. She'd come to Pine Hollow seeking a fresh start, but she'd found something greater, a community, a purpose, and the echoes of her own resilience, a legacy carved in the stillness of her spirit, a tale for the ages. Months later, Amara stood in the stillness space, watching a group of kids practice Wing Chun forms, their laughter filling the air, their movements a clumsy but eager imitation of her own, a reflection of her teachings, a mirror of her journey. The center had grown, its new wing bustling with activity, martial arts classes echoing with the slap of feet on mats, a rhythm of discipline, art exhibits adorned with Lila's photos and Omar's sketches, a gallery of hope, community meetings filled with the hum of conversation, a chorus of unity, a hub of healing and growth, a sanctuary of peace. Lila snapped photos nearby, documenting the center's first anniversary, her camera clicking with precision, her blue hair a splash of color against the neutral walls, a chronicler of progress, a witness to change. "You've changed this town," she said, her voice warm, her smile bright, a testament to their friendship, a bond of steel. Amara smiled, her gaze distant, her mind drifting to the past, a journey from storm to stillness, a path from exile to home. "We changed it together," she replied, her voice soft but certain, a truth etched in her soul, a legacy shared. She thought of Caleb, who'd moved away after his expulsion, his family relocating to escape the scandal, a ghost of the past that no longer haunted her. A shadow faded. She wondered if he'd found his own path to redemption, a question she left unanswered, a burden she released, a weight lifted. Her path was here, in the laughter of these kids, the support of her friends, and the quiet strength her grandfather had instilled in her, a power that had grown with each challenge, a force of nature. As the sun set over Pine Hollow, casting golden light through the center's windows, Amara felt a deep peace settle in her bones, a stillness that went beyond the physical, a harmony of body and spirit, a symphony of resilience. She'd faced the whispers of her past and turned them into a storm of change, a legacy that would endure in Pine Hollow for years to come, a tale that would echo in the hearts of many. And somewhere in the distance, she could almost hear her grandfather's voice, a whisper carried on the wind, a mantra of wisdom. "The strongest strike is the one you never throw." But the story doesn't end here. Rumors are swirling that a new threat is emerging in Pine Hollow, a shadow from Amara's past, returning to test her strength once more. Who could it be, and what will she do? Share your predictions in the comments below and follow to find out in the next thrilling chapter.